Welcome back, warrior. So today, guess what? I found out that my poor scriptures that I had highlighted. I did the Book of Mormon challenge that President Nelson gave, and it was an 86-day Book of Mormon challenge where we highlighted the name of Jesus Christ and like all his many names and roles and everything in the Book of Mormon. Anyways, I sent it with my son to go to young men's camp because I thought, hey, maybe if I give him the one that has like my cool highlighting, it will inspire him to want to read it more. Well, apparently it got all soaked and wet and he had to chuck it. And I didn't realize that until today when we resumed our family scripture study for before school. And I was like, man, where is that copy of the Book of Mormon that I had? And I've had this copy for a while down here, like with my with the treadmill. And I was like, but I've been missing my other copy. Like, where did it go? You know? So then my poor son's like, Mom, I told you that I had to throw it away. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, because it got wet during camp. And I was like, oh, he's like, I told you that. And I was like, no, anyway, I was crying mid-breakfast and scriptures because I was just like, oh, those were so treasured. You know, it's so funny that like, it's just, I mean, I have how many copies of the Book of Mormon? But like, you know how like you make certain copies of the Book of Mormon personal to you, and like that one was just so special. It was so perfectly highlighted and it didn't have my random scribblings, but it was just highlighting. And I was like, oh, like really sad about it. Anyways, he was like, I told you about it. So poor kid, I felt bad that I had brought it up because it didn't really register when he told me what had happened. And so of course, for his first day back to school, he's all feeling bad because he ruined my copy of the scriptures. But anyway, it's fine. We just need to do it again. And you know, when you're in that mode, like I can't even do it right now because I'm literally walking. It would be the worst kind of highlighting because it would be all over the place, you know? And so I wouldn't be able to do it now, which makes me sad too, because I'm like, oh, I could just start now, right? And then it would at least cover the back half of the Book of Mormon. No, can't do it. Anyways, so that's where we're at. My iPad just told me we were full, so that's awesome news also. I'm hoping that it'll be fine. Yeah, it seems like it's fine pulling up all these scriptures. So we're now on Alma chapter 47. And let's see how many verses is 47? 47 is 36 verses, and chapter 48 is, I was going to say 3 verses. Chapter 48 is 25 verses. So it's possible that we can do both today. But maybe I'll save 3 chapters for tomorrow because that's when the kids will all, like, 2 of the kids will be back in school. Okay, so here we go. Malachi uses treachery, murder, and intrigue to become king of the Lamanites. The Nephite dissenters are more wicked and ferocious than the Lamanites. Why is that? You know? Why does it always have to happen like that? Okay, where did the... Great, I lost my... Oh, here it is. I'm like, where's my bookmark? Okay. Here we go. So this is a tip for parents from the Redhead Hostess. She says, if you have teens, you might want to give them this chapter and ask them to study it and give a lesson to your family. Ooh, okay. Will do. Okay, now we will return in our record to Amalickiah and those who had fled with him into the wilderness, for behold, he had taken those who went with him and went up in the land of Nephi among the Lamanites, and did stir up the Lamanites to anger against the people of Nephi, insomuch that the king of the Lamanites sent a proclamation throughout all his land among all his people, that they should gather themselves together again to go to battle against the Nephites. This Malachi character is losing points in my book. Not that he cares. Okay. Also, it's so funny when I do number 2 on the treadmill, I'll show you. When I'm doing number 2 on the treadmill, I kind of have like this pace of like reading like this. Okay. And then when I go to pace 3, I'm like, oh, I better read faster. And so I start reading a little bit faster. And it came to pass that when the proclamation had gone forth among them, they were exceedingly afraid, and I'm like, oh, that's so funny how I never realized connecting the pace of my talking or my walking kind of goes along with my talking. So anyway, that's just kind of a fun thing. But I'm going to slow it down just a couple notches. So we're not quite at the 2 and making everything take forever. And we're not quite at the 3 where we're just zooming past things. But we want it to be at a good pace where we're taking things in and being able to learn that way. Okay. Anyways, they were exceedingly afraid. Okay. Yea, they feared to displease the king, and they also feared to go to battle against the Nephites, lest they should lose their lives. And it came to pass that they would not, or the more part of them would not obey the commandments of the king. And now it came to pass that the king was wroth because of their disobedience. Therefore, he gave Malachi the command of that part of his army, which was obedient unto his commands, and commanded him that he should go forth and compel them to arms. So a bunch of peeps were like, no, we don't want to fight the Nephites. And Malachi's like, let's go. And the king was like, we don't need to, but if, you want to do it, that's fine. Right. So they wouldn't obey the king either. Okay. So verses 1 and 2, while the Nephites were experiencing some peace for a bit, Malachi was among the Lamanites, stirring them up. Who knows what kinds of things Malachi was telling them about the Nephites, honestly. But Malachi would have known or quickly figured out their sore points with the Nephites, then possibly amplified those. Consequently, both of them already hated the Christians, so that would have been an easy part to start. Malachi continued to stir them up until the king was ready to go to war again, which would have been a big deal because of their great losses just a year earlier, right? That seems so crazy. And the king sent out a proclamation to gather again for battle, but the people didn't want to go. They were like, no thanks, y'all's go fight. They were afraid to go to battle. Ooh. Did I put my necklace on there? Oh, okay. They're afraid. Sometimes I wonder if I clip it onto my necklace. They were afraid to go to battle because last time their large numbers were no match for Nephite armies. But they also did not want to displease the king. However, when they weighed the two, the more part of them would not obey the commandments of the king. So that's pretty awesome, actually, I think. So he's giving Malachi a command of part of the army, maybe to help people. Now behold, this was the desire of Malachi, for he being a very subtle man, to do evil. Therefore he laid the plan in his heart to dethrone the king of the Lamanites. Of course, right? It's funny that the king was like, sure, but the wicked destroyed themselves amongst themselves, And now, verse 5, and now he had got the command of those parts of the Lamanites who were in favor of the king, and he sought to gain favor of those who were not obedient. Therefore he went forward to a place which was called Onidah, for thither had the Lamanites fled, for they discovered the army coming, and supposing that they were coming to destroy them. Therefore they fled to Onidah, to the place of arms. Okay, by the way, I think we have silverware called Onidah. Anyway, I don't know. From our wedding, who knows? It's fancy or something. Anyway, and they had appointed a man to be king and a leader over them, being fixed in their minds with a determined resolution that they would not be subjected to go against the Nephites. And it came to pass that they had gathered themselves together upon the top of the mount, which was called Antipas, in preparation to battle. Now it was not Amalickiah's intention to give them battle according to the commandments of the king, but behold, it was his intention to gain favor with the armies of the Lamanites, that he might place himself at their head and dethrone the king and take possession of the kingdom. And behold, it came to pass that he caused his army to pitch their tents in the valley which was near the mount Antipas. And it came to pass that when it was night, he sent a secret embassy into the mount Antipas, desiring that the leader of those who were upon the mount, whose name was Careful with Frodo. Who was it? Oh, okay, nice. Good. Where's the shoe? By the door. Showing. Oh, the whole window's open. You can see the shoe. Get him, shoe. Get him, shoe. Get him. He's looking at us. He's giving us away. What are you doing? You get him, shoe. Get him. I don't know how to do that from here. From your phone? Well, I know, but my phone's all the way downstairs. I'll go get it. No. Alexa, show me the Wisecam front door. Alexa, show me the front door Wisecam. Sorry, I didn't find a clever device named front door Wisecam. Alexa, show me the Wisecam. Alexa, show me the Wisecam.
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, the Wisecam.
What are you talking about? Oh, look. No. She's not home.
Can you ask her, your mom, when she'll be home? When will you be home? I know how to do this. If you go down the trick and you can see that.
Gotta be careful. Oh boy, great. Now you're gonna get something. Well, because you just said that. I know.
Why do you have to be quiet?
So that the guys don't hear us that are coming to the door. Who was it? Okay.
All right.
Okay. Are we gone?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna move this down. Let's not pull this up, okay? This protects us from random people looking at us. Yeah, he's gone.
Never go look at them before. You have to see the wise.
Yeah, we got to look at the wise cam, not the door. We don't want to run to the door because somebody could be there and could hurt us. What is this? Oh, Ben must have done this when he brought the thing in.
The door?
The fan.
Oh.
Jeez. He just wasn't being careful. Okay, leave that there. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No, Mom. It's on your it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you always want to check the wise. You don't want to just go to the door because that's dangerous. Stop picking your nose. Don't touch your nose. Don't touch your nose. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Hey, you. You're just an adorable Xiaomai. You're just an adorable Xiaomai. Just an adorable Xiaomai. Hey, Fausty. Come get your stuff ready for school tomorrow. You left your backpack down here, but make everything ready to go. Like put your water bottle in there and get it all ready, okay? And then set out the clothes you're going to wear tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, because I'm going to take your picture.
Put my nice shirt on. I take the picture and then I can take it off.
No.
I'm not wearing a nice shirt to school, Mom.
It just needs to be a nice shirt one day.
No.
Xiaomai. One day, Xiaomai. One day. Guys, you should just wear it the one day. Look at me. I'm wearing a bow. It's a random day, guys. That's because you're a handsome shoe. That's because you're a handsome shoe. Guys, she didn't make me. I get a treat every time I wear one, guys. It's true, huh, shoe? What if mom gives you a treat to wear one? Like a little Shuma treat.
Like a Lego set?
No, like a Shuma treat. She gives you Lego sets all the time, guys. Okay, so somebody came to the door, so we needed to go address it before the kids try to open the door to random strangers. Okay, let's see. Amalickiah had swindled his way into the Lamanites so deeply that the king of the Lamanites set Amalickiah over his armies and told Amalickiah to go to the Mount Antipas and compel those people to fight. So verse 4 could have big parentheses around it, for Mormon is telling us what Amalickiah's secret plan really was. And it was not just to use the Lamanites to go to war with the Nephites, but to become the king of the Lamanites, right? Anyways. So King of the Lamanites had no idea, obviously, because it's weird how, like, how do wicked people not understand how to be wicked? Like, you're wicked. Wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you be the first person to know that peeps are? Wouldn't you always be like sus of peeps? I don't know. I would be. Hence, the king of the Lamanites had brought a snake into his inner circle and didn't even know it. Malachi's plan was not to go and compel Lamanites to battle, but first to gain their favor, right? First, you got to be the favorite. So notice the words in verse 6 and show how determined the Lamanites were. They were fixed in their minds and had a determined resolution that they gathered together. They were committed to not going to war against the Nephites, right? They didn't want to, which is good, right? But this is a great story to use with the youth to demonstrate how Satan will use all types of methods in order to lead them into sin, and he seeks to make them miserable like unto himself. There is a lot of application here in this story, and it starts with these verses and having a people who were fixed and determined not to go to battle. And let's see how fixed and determined they were, right? Watch how Amalickiah lured these people. When Amalickiah and the army first arrived, the people gathered themselves on top of the Mount Antipas for greater safety, and they were prepared to battle. But that was not Amalickiah's plan. Instead, he sent a secret embassy into the mount and asked Lahontai to come down to the foot of the mount so he could talk. But Lahontai would not come. So Amalickiah was really smart and requested a couple times, but then he went up and told him, like, you can just come down with your with some security, you know, come with your best guys or whatever. And it worked. So we're going to see how it worked, verses 12 to 13. And it came to pass that when Amalickiah found that he could not get Lahontai to come down from off the mount, he went up into the mount nearly, so he was bringing his guards with him, right? And it came to pass that when Lahontai had come down with his guards to Amalickiah, that Amalickiah desired him to come down with his army in the nighttime and surround those men in their camps over whom the king had given him command, and that he would deliver them up into Lahontai's hands if he would make him, Amalickiah, a second leader over the whole army. Seems very tricky, right? So then it came to pass that Lahontai came down with his men and surrounded the men of Amalickiah, so that before they awoke at the dawn of day, they were surrounded by the armies of Lahontai. And it came to pass that when they saw that they were surrounded, they pled with Amalickiah that he would suffer them to fall in with their brethren, that they might not be destroyed. Now this was the very thing which Amalickiah desired. And it came to pass that he delivered his men contrary to the commands of the king. Now this was the thing that Amalickiah desired, that he might accomplish his designs in dethroning the king. This is so crazy. Now, it was the custom among the Lamanites, if their chief leader was killed, to appoint the second leader to be their chief leader. Go figure. And it came to pass that Amalickiah caused that one of his servants should administer poison by degrees to Lahontai, that he died. So it was undetected, right? Now when Lahontai was dead, the Lamanites appointed Amalickiah to be their leader and their chief commander. Go figure. It came to pass that Amalickiah marched with his armies, for he had gained his desires, to the land of Nephi, to the city of Nephi, which was the chief city. And the king came. Okay, so here's what I'm not understanding. This is all done within the Lamanite walls, right? You see how the wicked are killing the wicked and destroying themselves? Like, that is just so crazy. Okay, so we're at verse number 19. No, 20. Just kidding, 21. Let's pay attention, Linda. Okay. So, Lahontai came down with his armies and surrounded Amalickiah and his armies, and Amalickiah played along. Amalickiah's men pled with him to fall in with Lahontai's men, and so Amalickiah acted like he was saving his army and delivered them up to Lahontai, and then he was granted to be second in command. But here's the catch. The likely custom was that if something happened to the chief leader, then the second in command would come to power. Therefore, Lahontai was in a very dangerous position. He was all that stood in the way of Amalickiah being in full control of all these armies. Like, how does he not know this? I literally would not want to be king or ruler of anything if there was a second person in command, because immediately I'm like, they're going to take me out any minute. You know what I mean? So it was not just Lahontai who came off the mount, but all of Lahontai's army was deceived. They may have been fixed and determined to stay, but ultimately they were lured off the mountain. So remember, originally they were not going to fight. And then later it was like, okay, we're going to have to gather together. And now then they came down. Anyway, Lahontai needed to die, but it couldn't send a alarm to the rest of the armies. Excuse me. So Amalickiah had him poisoned by degrees. Therefore, Lahontai just got sicker and sicker instead of just suddenly dying. Amalickiah's cleverness was deadly and undetectable. For someone not aware, Sister Elaine Dalton likened this to how Satan often works with the youth today. And I would add with everybody, because it's not just the youth that he attacks, but she was the General Young Women's president for a time. And so that is why she was specifically talking to the youth. Quote, could it be that we have been slowly desensitized into thinking that high moral standards are old-fashioned and not relevant or important in today's society? As Elder Hales has just reminded us, Lahontai in the Book of Mormon was well positioned on the top of a mountain. He and those he led were fixed in their minds with a determined resolution that they would not come down from the mount. But it only took the deceitful Amalickiah 4 tries, each one more bold than the previous, to get Lahontai to come down off the mount. And then, having embraced Amalickiah's false promises, Lahontai was poisoned by degrees until he died. Not just poisoned, but by degrees. Could it be that this may be happening today? Could it be that first we tolerate, then accept, and eventually embrace the vice that surrounds us? Could it be that we have been deceived by false role models and persuasive media messages that cause us to forget our divine identity? Are we too being poisoned by degrees? What could be more deceptive than to entice the youth of this noble generation to do nothing, or to be busy ever texting but never coming to a knowledge of the truths contained in a book that was written for you and your day by prophets of God, the Book of Mormon? What could be more deceptive than to entice women, young and old, you and me, to be so involved in ourselves, our looks, our clothes, and our body shape and size that we lose sight of our divine identity and our ability to change the world through our virtuous influence? What could be more deceptive than to entice men, young and old, holding the holy priesthood of God, to view seductive pornography and thus focus on flesh instead of faith, to be consumers of vice rather than guardians of virtue? The Book of Mormon relates the story of the 2,000 young heroes whose virtue and purity gave them the strength to defend their parents' covenants and their family's faith. Their virtue and commitment to be true at all times changed the world. End quote. This is why I got chills. Did you get chills? This is why I love Sister Dalton. She was such a great leader. She still is, but now I just don't see her or follow her or whatever, but I was able to meet her one time. She came to our stake, I think, and it was the best. And then she actually served as Young Women's President, or General Young Women's President, when I was Young Women's President. And fun fact is, she's the one who introduced the temple recommend for the youth, the single-use temple recommend, not single-use, what am I talking about? The recommends where they didn't have to be all together in a group instead they can go alone by themselves. And it's just amazing to see. So I work at the temple, and it is in the baptistry, and it is amazing to see how the youth come on their own. Like these little youth, they're just like, I am here coming. And I'm like, did you get dropped off? Because you look way too little to be here by yourself. You know what I mean? And they're just coming, and they're going and doing their temple thing, and they're wanting that relationship with the Lord, and wanting to be in holy places, and choosing to be good, you know? And like all this because Sister Dalton had the faith to suggest the idea that children have their own temple recommend. And I just love that so much. And I didn't know that until she gave that talk at our stake. And I was like totally floored, but not unexpected, because that's totally something that she would want to do. But anyway, that was just really cool, I thought. So fun fact that you now know about Sister Dalton. So when you think about your youth going on their own to the temple, you can thank Sister Dalton in your heart. Like, thank you, Sister Dalton, for being courageous and sharing your ideas. Okay. Verse 21, and the king came out to meet him with his guards, for he supposed that Amalickiah had fulfilled his commands, and that Amalickiah had gathered together so great an army to go against the Nephites to battle. But behold, as the king came out to meet Amalickiah, Amalickiah caused that his servants should go forth to meet the king. And they went and bowed themselves before the king, as if to reverence him because of his greatness. And it came to pass that the king put forth his hand to raise them, as was the custom with the Lamanites, as a token of peace, which custom they had taken from the Nephites. Okay, so this is still the Lamanites. And it came to pass that when he had raised the first from the ground, behold, he stabbed the king to the heart, and he fell to the earth. Seriously, you just can't make this stuff up. You know what I mean? Now the servants of the king fled, and the servants of Amalickiah raised a cry, saying, what do you think they said? It totally lies, is probably what happened. Behold, the servants of the king have stabbed him in the heart, and he has fallen, and they have fled. Behold, come and see. Right? Yeah. And it came to pass that Amalickiah commanded that his armies should march forth and see what had happened to the king. And when they had come to the spot and found the king lying in his gore, Amalickiah pretended to be wroth and said, whosoever loved the king, let him go forth and pursue his servants, that they may be slain. And it came to pass that all they who loved the king, when they heard these words, came forth and pursued after the servants of the king. Now, when the servants of the king saw an army pursuing after them, they were frightened again and fled into the wilderness and came over into the land of Zarahemla and joined the people of Ammon. Because now they're like, we're going to not be Lamanites anymore. And the army which pursued after them returned, having pursued after them in vain, and thus Amalickiah, by his fraud, gained the hearts of the people. Doesn't that make you sick? It makes me feel sick that he got away with this stuff, you know? Hate it when the bad guy wins temporarily, even for just a moment. Okay, Amalickiah then becomes the chief leader of those armies, and then very quickly becomes the king of the Lamanites. So upon the arrival, he sees the king, and then that whole thing just happened. And now he literally murdered the king. And suddenly Amalickiah had gained the hearts of the people. So now what's next? To gain the heart of the queen, right? Ugh. So this is the part where I definitely don't like. But at the same time, you're like, well, what is she going to do, right? I don't know. Okay, so we'll see what happens. And it came to pass on the morrow, he entered the city Nephi with his armies and took possession of the city. And now it came to pass that the queen, when she had heard that the king was slain, for Amalickiah had sent an embassy to the queen informing her of the king, that the king had been slain by his servants, that he had pursued them with his army, but it was in vain, and they had made their escape. Therefore, when the queen had received this message, she sent unto Malachi, desiring him that he would spare the people of the city, and she also desired him that he should come in unto her. And she also desired him that he should bring witnesses with him to testify concerning the death of the king. It came to pass that Amalickiah took the same servant that slew the king, jerk, and all them who were with him, and went in to the queen unto the place where she sat. And they all testified unto her that the king was slain by his own servants. And they said also, they have fled. Does not this testify against them? And thus they satisfied the queen concerning the death of the king. Seems like kind of really fast, like, okay. And maybe back in the day, they were the Lamanites. So I would say that they were already wicked, doing wicked things. Maybe that's why it was easy for them to be like, okay, sure, And maybe it was like an arranged marriage, and maybe she didn't like the king anyway and didn't really fight for him. I don't know. I'm just making all kinds of speculation up, because the next section, the next parts that we read really kind of bother me. But I'm like, maybe they just don't. I mean, when you're wicked, it's like you do wicked things, right? So, therefore, let's see, where is it? Oh yeah, verse 35. Okay, so Amalickiah becomes king of the Lamanites, is what happens here. And it came to pass that Amalickiah sought the favor of the queen, right? Because he's so good at sucking up. And took her unto him to wife. So I'm sure that took a little longer than that, but really it feels really immediate. And thus by his fraud and by the assistance of his cunning servants, he obtained the kingdom. Yea, he was acknowledged king throughout all the land, among all the people of the Lamanites, who were composed of the Lamanites and the Lemuelites and the Ishmaelites and all the dissenters of the Nephites from the reign of Nephi down to the present time. Okay. So remember where this guy came from? He was a Nephite in Zarahemla and trying to get popular. He couldn't get popular among the Nephites. So he's like, let me go to a place clear over there, and I'm just going to take over. Like, you got to hand it to him for a minute, at least, just for the fact that he was determined enough to do all this. And, maybe we need to be a little bit more determined in the things that we seek after and, like, go get it, Like, go get it. Like you want to go to school, you want to graduate, get it. Get it, girl. You want to start a biz, go get it. You want to, you know what I mean? Like I do love and can appreciate that. I don't appreciate how he got there, because he lied and killed people and murdered and tricked the queen, and, I would have at least thought that the queen would have put up some kind of like mourning, time of mourning. And maybe it's irrelevant to have it even listed in here, that there's a mourning period, who knows. But I would have wanted to see that, But I mean, if he was a wicked king, and maybe she was not as wicked, I don't know. As wicked is like, that's just a funny statement, right? Maybe she didn't like the fact that the way the king was acting anyway. And so, who knows? Maybe Amalickiah was treating her a little nicer. I'm just saying, I don't know. I can't say, but I'm just like hoping he treats her nicer. And maybe that's why she took him to be the king, to be her king kind of thing, Anyways. Okay, now these dissenters, having the same instruction and the same information of the Nephites, yea, having been instructed in the same knowledge of the Lord, nevertheless, it is strange to relate, not long after their dissensions, they become more hardened and impotent and more wild, wicked, and ferocious than the Lamanites, drinking in with the traditions of the Lamanites, giving way to indolence and all manner of lasciviousness, yea, entirely forgetting the Lord their God. Crazy, right? Okay, so there's another quote. This is the last quote. Elder Robert E. Hales says this: as the Savior demonstrated with Herod, Sometimes true disciples must show Christian courage by saying nothing at all. Once, when I was golfing, I barely brushed up against a large cholla cactus, which seems to shoot needles like a porcupine. Thorns from that plant stuck all over my clothing, even though I had barely touched the cactus plant. Some situations are like that plant. They can only injure us. Some situations are like that plant. They can only injure us. In such instances, we are better off to keep our distance and simply walk away. As we do, some may try to provoke us and engage us in an argument. In the Book of Mormon, we read about Lahontai and his men camped upon a mount. The traitors, Amalickiah, urged Lahontai to come down, or the treacherous Amalickiah urged Lahontai to come down and meet him in the valley. But when Lahontai left the high ground, he was poisoned by degrees until he died, and his army fell into Amalickiah's hands. By arguments and accusations, some people bait us to leave the high ground. The high ground is where the light is. It's where we see the first light of morning and the last light in the evening. It is the safe ground. It is true, and where knowledge is. Sometimes others want us to come down off the high ground and join them in a theological scrum in the mud. These few contentious individuals are set on picking religious fights, online or in person. We are always better staying on the higher ground of mutual respect and love. End quote. Ooh, I love that. Okay, that's October 2008 General Conference from Elder Robert D. Hales. Okay, that is chapter 47 from Alma. Let me read it, live it. Okay, so here's the read it, live it for today. It says, Amalickiah's scheme to destroy Lahontai is to bring him down from his safe place. For a time, Lahontai was wiser, but tragically, he eventually gave in. No bueno, huh? Don't come down. So true. All right. Until Alma chapter 48, stay strong, warrior, and don't come down.